Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided the mining drill through another chunk of space rock. The asteroid belt around Epsilon 7 station was full of valuable metals, but today felt different. His scanner kept beeping in a strange pattern he had never heard before. "Hey Lisa, come look at this," Jake called to his partner. Lisa Chen floated over in her spacesuit, her boots clicking against the metal floor of their small mining ship. "What is it now, Jake? Please tell me you found something worth our time. We have been out here for 6 hours already," Lisa said, checking her oxygen meter. Jake pointed at the scanner screen. The display showed something large buried deep inside the asteroid they were working on. It was not metal ore or precious stones. The shape was too regular, too perfect to be natural rock. "This does not look like anything I have seen before," Jake said. "Look at these readings. The material is giving off some kind of energy signature, but it is very weak." Lisa moved closer to the screen. Her eyes went wide as she saw the scan results. The object was huge, maybe the size of a small building. It had smooth surfaces and what looked like corridors inside. "Jake, we should report this to Captain Rodriguez right away. This could be alien technology. You know the rules about unknown artifacts," Lisa said, her voice getting worried. But Jake was already putting on his cutting tools. His mind raced with possibilities. In his 12 years as a salvage engineer, he had seen plenty of crashed ships and old machines. But this was different. This was something ancient and mysterious. "Just give me 30 minutes to take a closer look," Jake said. "If it is dangerous, we will leave immediately. But what if it is something amazing? What if it could help people?" Lisa shook her head. "Jake, you always do this. Remember what happened on Titan Station? You almost got us both killed because you were curious about that old reactor." "That was different. This time I will be careful," Jake promised, though they both knew he would get lost in his work once he started. Jake began cutting through the asteroid rock. The material was harder than normal stone, but his plasma cutter made steady progress. After 20 minutes, he broke through into an open space. The beam from his helmet light revealed something incredible. A massive metallic figure lay in the center of a perfectly round chamber. It looked like a person, but much taller and with strange proportions. The surface was covered in what appeared to be crystal formations that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. "Lisa, you need to see this," Jake whispered into his radio. "Jake, please tell me you did not go inside that thing," Lisa replied, but she was already putting on her gear to join him. When Lisa reached the chamber, she gasped. The figure was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was clearly made by an advanced civilization, but it had been here for a very long time. Dust covered everything, and some of the crystal parts were cracked or missing. "What do you think it is?" Lisa asked, staying close to the entrance. Jake moved around the figure, studying it from every angle. "I think it is some kind of robot or android. Look at these joints and the way the parts connect. This is incredible engineering. But something is wrong with it." He pointed to a large crack in the figure's chest area. Inside, they could see damaged components and what looked like power conduits that had been severed. "It is broken," Jake said. "But I think I could fix it." "Absolutely not," Lisa said firmly. "We are not touching this thing. We are going back to the station right now and reporting what we found. Let the science team deal with it." But Jake was not listening anymore. He was looking at the damaged systems, his engineer's mind already working out how to repair them. He had always been good at fixing things. Even as a child, he would take apart broken toys and machines just to see how they worked. "Look at this power system," Jake said, pointing to a series of crystalline nodes around the figure's core. "It is like nothing I have ever seen, but the basic principles are similar to our quantum batteries. If I could just reconnect these pathways and find a way to recharge the main cell." "Jake Martinez, you listen to me right now," Lisa said, grabbing his arm. "This could be a weapon, this could be a trap, this could be anything. We have no idea what this thing was made for, or what it might do if you turn it on." Jake looked at his partner. He could see the fear in her eyes, and he understood it. But he also saw something else in the alien figure. It was not built for war or destruction. The design was too elegant, too carefully crafted. Someone had made this with love and respect, the way Jake made his own repair work. I know you are scared, Jake said gently. But look at the way this was built. Every part fits perfectly with every other part. The person who made this cared about their work. This is not a weapon. It is something important. Lisa sighed. She had worked with Jake long enough to know that look in his eyes. Once he decided to fix something, nothing would stop him. If you are going to do this crazy thing, then I am staying to help, she said. But if anything goes wrong, we leave immediately. And I mean anything. Jake smiled. Deal. Now help me get my tools. We are going to wake up something that has been sleeping for a very long time. 3 weeks had passed since Jake and Lisa discovered the alien figure. Every day, Jake returned to the asteroid chamber with new tools and ideas. Lisa watched nervously as her partner worked on the mysterious being, connecting wires and replacing damaged crystal components. Jake had learned many things about the alien technology during those weeks. The crystals were not just decorations. They carried energy and information like the circuits in human computers. The metal parts were made from materials he had never seen before, but they worked in ways he could understand. Hand me that power coupling, Jake said, reaching out his hand without looking away from his work. He was deep inside the figure's chest cavity, carefully reconnecting the main energy pathways. Lisa passed him the tool. Are you sure about this, Jake? Captain Rodriguez has been asking questions. He wants to know why we keep coming back to this asteroid. Just tell him we found a rich vein of rare metals, Jake replied, his voice muffled from inside the figure. We are not lying exactly. These crystal formations are worth more than anything we have ever found. That is not the point, and you know it, Lisa said. What if this thing is dangerous? What if turning it on brings trouble to the station? Jake emerged from the chest cavity, wiping his hands on a cloth. His face was dirty but excited. Lisa, I have been studying this for 3 weeks. Every system I have examined is designed for protection and preservation. This is not a war machine, it is a guardian of some kind. He pointed to various parts of the figure. Look at these sensor arrays. They are made for detecting threats from far away, and these defensive systems are designed to shield and protect, not to attack and destroy. Whoever built this wanted it, to keep something safe. Lisa was not convinced, but she could see that Jake had made his decision. She had watched him work on the alien technology with more care and respect than he showed his own equipment. Jake talked to the figure while he worked, explaining what he was doing as if it could hear him. Okay, I think we are ready, Jake said, connecting the final power conduit. The energy cell should be able to hold enough charge to bring the basic systems online. Should be able to? Lisa asked. You mean you are not sure? Jake smiled nervously. The theory is sound. I have triple-checked all the connections. The worst that could happen is nothing. The best that could happen is we make contact with an advanced alien civilization. He moved to a control panel he had rigged up beside the figure. The panel connected to the alien's power systems through a series of adapters Jake had built from salvaged parts. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the activation switch. Here we go, Jake whispered, and pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft humming sound filled the chamber. The crystal formations began to glow with a gentle blue light that grew brighter and brighter. The metal parts of the figure started to warm up, and Jake could hear the sound of internal systems coming to life. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. Maybe we should get back to a safe distance, she said. But Jake was transfixed. The figure's chest rose and fell as if it was breathing. The crystal patterns pulsed with light in complex rhythms. Most amazing of all, the figure's head turned toward them, and 2 bright blue lights appeared where eyes should be. The being sat up slowly, moving with grace despite its great size. It looked around the chamber, then focused its attention on Jake and Lisa. When it spoke, the voice did not come from its mouth but seemed to appear directly in their minds. Who has awakened me from the long sleep? The voice asked. The words were clear and gentle, carrying no threat or anger. Jake stepped forward, his fear replaced by wonder. My name is Jake Martinez. This is my partner Lisa Chen. We found you here and I repaired your damaged systems. The being studied Jake for a long moment. You repaired me? You restored my function? Yes, Jake said. Your power cell was drained and several of your main circuits were damaged. It took me 3 weeks to figure out how your technology works, but I managed to fix the problems. The being stood up to its full height of 12 feet. The blue light from its crystals filled the chamber with an otherworldly glow. I am called Keeper HFY of the Eternal Vigil. I have been dormant for 817 years, waiting for one who possessed both the knowledge to repair me and the wisdom to do so with pure intent, Lisa whispered to Jake. 800 years? How is that possible? HFY heard her whisper. Time passes differently for my kind, young one. We were created to endure, to watch, and to wait. I was damaged in the Great War and set adrift in space. My location was lost and I believed I would never wake again. The Guardian moved closer to Jake, its massive form surprisingly graceful. But you, Jake Martinez of the species called human, you found me and chose to restore me rather than harvest my components for their value. This is most unusual. Unusual how? Jake asked. In my long existence, I have observed many species across the galaxy. Most who discover ancient technology seek to exploit it for personal gain. They would have dismantled me piece by piece to study my construction or sell my parts. But you saw a broken being and chose to heal rather than harm. Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. I just did what seemed right. You were damaged and I knew I could fix you. It did not seem right to leave you broken. HFY made a sound that might have been laughter. Such simple words, yet they reveal so much about your character and your species. Tell me, Jake Martinez, do all humans think as you do? I do not know about all humans, Jake said honestly. But most of the people I know would have done the same thing. We help each other when we can. It is just how we are. The Guardian was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, it spoke again. Your species fascinates me, young human. In all my years of observation, I have never encountered beings quite like you. You possess advanced technology, yet you retain compassion. You have the power to take, yet you choose to give. Lisa found her voice. What happens now? What do you want from us? HFY turned its glowing eyes toward her. What I want, Lisa Chen, is to understand. Your companion has passed the first test simply by choosing to repair rather than exploit. But there are other tests, other questions that must be answered before I can fulfill my true purpose. What kind of tests? Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Tests that will determine whether your species is ready for what I protect, HFY said. Tests that will decide the future of humanity among the stars. Jake stared at the towering Guardian, trying to understand what HFY meant by tests. The blue glow from the alien's crystals made strange shadows dance on the chamber walls. Lisa stayed close behind him, clearly nervous about what might happen next. What kind of test are you talking about? Jake asked. And what do you mean by what you protect? HFY moved to the center of the chamber, its massive form somehow graceful despite its size. I was created by an ancient civilization to guard something precious, knowledge that could advance your species by thousands of years, or destroy them completely if used wrongly. The Guardian gestured with one hand, and suddenly the air above them filled with glowing images. Jake and Lisa gasped as they saw pictures of amazing technologies, ships that could travel faster than light, machines that could heal any injury, devices that could create matter from nothing. This is incredible, Lisa whispered, staring at the floating images. These technologies could solve every problem humanity has, hunger, disease, energy shortages, everything. Yes, HFY agreed. But such power requires wisdom. Many species have failed these tests and destroyed themselves with knowledge they were not ready to handle. That is why the tests exist. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What happened to those species? Some used the technology to make weapons that wiped out their own planets. Others became so dependent on the machines that they forgot how to think for themselves. A few tried to become gods and lost their souls in the process. The images in the air changed, showing dead worlds and empty cities. Jake could see the remains of great civilizations that had once reached for the stars, only to fall because they could not handle the power they had gained. Your repair of my systems was the first test, HFY continued. It showed that humans can look at something broken and choose to fix it rather than profit from it. But there are 2 more tests that must be passed. What is the second test? Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. HFY raised one hand, and Jake suddenly felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. His vision became sharper, his hearing more sensitive. He could feel strength flowing through his muscles that he had never experienced before. I have temporarily given you a small portion of my abilities, the Guardian explained. Enhanced strength, faster healing, and the power to connect directly with any machine or computer. You now have capabilities far beyond any normal human. Jake looked at his hands in amazement. He could feel energy flowing through them. When he touched the wall of the chamber, he could sense the molecular structure of the rock. It was like having a superpower from the old stories he had read as a child. This is amazing, Jake said, flexing his fingers and watching small sparks of energy dance between them. I can feel everything around me. The power systems, the metal in the walls, even Lisa's heart beating. Lisa took a step back, suddenly afraid. Jake, you look different. Your eyes are glowing. Jake turned to look at her, and she was right. He could see his reflection in her helmet visor. His eyes now glowed with the same blue light as HFY's crystals. The power coursing through him was intoxicating. For a moment, Jake imagined what he could do with these abilities. He could become famous, wealthy, powerful. He could solve problems that had puzzled human scientists for years. He could be more than just a simple salvage engineer working in the asteroid belt. But then he looked at Lisa's frightened face and remembered who he was. These powers were not really his. They were borrowed, temporary, and they came with a terrible responsibility. Take them back, Jake said suddenly. HFY tilted its head. What did you say? Take the powers back, Jake repeated, holding out his hands toward the Guardian. I do not want them. You do not want enhanced abilities? The power to heal, to connect with machines, to be stronger than any human who has ever lived? HFY sounded genuinely surprised. Jake shook his head. These powers would change who I am. I would not be Jake Martinez anymore. I would be something else, something more than human. And that scares me more than staying ordinary. He looked at the energy still dancing around his fingers. Besides, if I had these powers and other humans did not, what would that make me? Better than them? Their leader, whether they wanted me to be or not? That is not right. Lisa stared at her partner in amazement. She had seen the wonder in his eyes when the powers first manifested, and she knew how tempting they must be, but Jake was choosing to give them up. Most beings who reach this point in the test become drunk on the power, HFY said. They beg for more abilities, more strength, more knowledge. They cannot imagine giving up such gifts. Well, I am giving them up, Jake said firmly. I like being human. I like working with my hands and solving problems with my brain. I like needing other people and having them need me. These powers would take all of that away. HFY waved its hand and Jake felt the strange energy leave his body. His vision returned to normal. His strength became ordinary again. He felt a moment of loss, but also relief. You have passed the second test, the Guardian announced. You understood that true power comes from choosing when not to use the abilities you possess. There is still a third test? Lisa asked. Yes, HFY replied, and this one is the most difficult of all. The Guardian moved closer to Jake. I offer you the chance to become my successor. I can grant you immortality, vast knowledge of the universe, and the ability to guide civilizations across the galaxy. You would become a keeper of wisdom, a guardian like myself. Jake felt his heart race. Immortality meant he could learn everything, see everything, help countless species across the stars. He could become something magnificent and eternal. But, HFY continued, accepting this role means leaving humanity behind forever. You would no longer be human. You would watch your species grow and change from a distance, never again able to be truly one of them. The chamber fell silent, except for the quiet humming of the Guardian systems. Jake looked at Lisa, at his tools scattered around the chamber, at his dirty work clothes. All of this represented his life as a human, his connections to his own species. "I would have to leave everyone behind?" Jake asked quietly. "Everyone and everything. Your role would be to guide all species, not just humanity. You could not favor your own kind over others. You would belong to the galaxy, not to Earth." Jake closed his eyes and thought about his life. He thought about Lisa, about the other engineers at the station, about the family he had left behind on Earth. He thought about the simple pleasure of fixing something that was broken, of sharing a meal with friends, of being part of something larger than himself. When he opened his eyes, his decision was clear. "Thank you for the offer," Jake said, "but my place is with my own people. I want to help humanity grow and learn, but I want to do it as one of them, not as something watching from above." HFY stood perfectly still for a long moment. Then, to Jake's surprise, the Guardian made a sound that was unmistakably laughter. "Remarkable," HFY said. "In all my long existence, you are the first being to pass all 3 tests. And your final answer is the most surprising of all." Jake felt confused by HFY's laughter. The sound echoed strangely in the chamber, mixing with the humming of the Guardian systems. Lisa moved closer to Jake, sensing that something important was about to happen. "Why is it surprising that I passed your tests?" Jake asked. "And why are you laughing?" HFY's crystal formations pulsed with brighter light, and the Guardian seemed to grow even taller. "Because, Jake Martinez, you have done something that should be impossible. You have proven that a species can evolve without losing its soul." The air above them filled with new images, but these were different from before. Jake and Lisa saw pictures of Earth, but not the Earth they knew. This Earth had massive cities that reached into the clouds, ships that sailed between the stars, and people who looked human but seemed to glow with inner light. "What are we looking at?" Lisa whispered. "Your past," HFY replied. "The true history of humanity that was hidden long ago." Jake stared at the images, trying to understand. "What do you mean, our past? Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. We are still a young species." "No, Jake Martinez, you are not young at all. You are the children of the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known." The images changed, showing humans with technology beyond anything Jake could imagine. They could travel instantly between distant worlds, create life from nothing, and bend reality itself to their will. But as Jake watched, he noticed something troubling. The humans in these images looked cold and distant. They moved like gods, but their eyes held no warmth. 1,000,000 years ago, humanity ruled half the galaxy, HFY continued. They were called the Vanguard, and they were more powerful than any species that had come before. They could do anything, create anything, become anything they desired. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "That cannot be true. If humans were so advanced, what happened to them? Where did all that technology go?" HFY gestured, and the images showed, the ancient humans gathering in great councils. Jake could see them debating, arguing, making difficult decisions. "The Vanguard realized they had made a terrible mistake," the Guardian explained. "In gaining the power of gods, they had lost something precious. They no longer felt joy in simple things. They no longer loved each other as they once had. They had become perfect machines instead of living beings." Jake felt a chill as he understood what he was seeing. They had lost their humanity. Exactly. They could create worlds, but they could not feel wonder at a sunset. They could heal any injury, but they could not comfort a crying child. They had all the power in the universe, but they had forgotten what it meant to be alive. The images showed the ancient humans making an incredible choice. They began destroying their own technology, abandoning their cities, giving up their godlike abilities. "They chose to start over?" Jake asked in amazement. "More than that," HFY replied. "They chose to forget. The Vanguard used their final act of great technology to erase their own memories and reduce themselves to a primitive state. They scattered across the galaxy, beginning again as simple beings on worlds like Earth. Lisa shook her head in disbelief. Why would anyone give up such power? Because they understood that power without heart is meaningless, HFY said. They preferred to be human rather than gods. They chose love over might, wonder over knowledge, growth over perfection. Jake looked at his own hands, thinking about the temporary powers HFY had given him. He remembered how tempting they had been, and how empty he had felt when he imagined having them forever. But if they erase their memories, how do you know all this? Jake asked. Because they created us first, HFY replied. The Guardians were built to remember what humanity chose to forget. We were designed to wait and watch, to test their descendants when they became ready. The images changed again, showing other species across the galaxy. Jake saw civilizations that had found Guardian technology and failed the tests. Some had destroyed themselves with weapons. Others had become slaves to their own machines. A few had transcended their physical forms but lost all compassion in the process. Many species have found Guardians over the past 1,000,000 years, HFY explained. All have failed the tests. Some failed because they were too violent. Others failed because they were too greedy or too proud. Until now, no species has shown the wisdom to reject power in favor of remaining true to themselves. Jake felt overwhelmed by the revelation. So humans are not just another young species trying to make their way in the galaxy. We are the descendants of its former rulers. You are more than that, HFY said. You are proof that consciousness can evolve without losing its essential nature. Your ancestors gambled everything on the hope that they could become both advanced and compassionate. You, Jake Martinez, are evidence that their gamble succeeded. Lisa was quiet for a long time, processing everything they had learned. Finally, she spoke. If this is all true, what does it mean for humanity now? What are we supposed to do with this knowledge? HFY turned its glowing eyes toward her. That choice belongs to Jake. He has passed the tests and earned the right to reclaim humanity's inheritance. He can access the repositories of knowledge left by the Vanguard. He can restore humanity to its former glory in a single generation. Jake felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. All of human history, all of their struggles and achievements, had led to this moment. He could give his species technology that would solve every problem they faced. No more hunger, no more disease, no more wars over resources. But he also remembered the images of the ancient humans. They had possessed all of those things, and it had cost them their souls. There is something I do not understand, Jake said slowly. If the Vanguard were so powerful, why did they not just fix the problem? Why did they not find a way to keep their technology and their humanity? HFY was quiet for a moment. Because they believed it was impossible. They thought that great power always corrupts, that advancement always comes at the cost of compassion. They saw no middle path. Jake nodded, beginning to understand. But you think there might be another way? I think, HFY said carefully, that you have already shown a path they never considered. You rejected the power I offered, but not because you feared it. You rejected it because you valued something more important. My connections to other people, Jake said. Yes. The Vanguard became isolated by their power. They forgot that strength comes from unity, not from individual might. But you understand that being human means being part of something larger than yourself. Jake looked around the chamber, at the alien technology that had waited 1,000,000 years for this moment. He thought about his species struggling and growing among the stars. They were not perfect, but they were learning. They were advancing while still caring for each other. What if there was a third option? Jake asked. What if humanity did not have to choose between power and compassion? What if we could find a way to grow into our inheritance slowly, carefully, while keeping what makes us human? For the first time since awakening, HFY seemed truly surprised. You would propose a path that your own ancestors never considered? Jake smiled. Maybe that is what 1,000,000 years of evolution was for. Maybe we needed to learn things the hard way so we could do better than they did. The Guardian stood silently, processing this new possibility. Around them, the chamber hummed, with ancient technology, waiting to see what choice would shape the future of humanity and the galaxy itself. The chamber fell silent as HFY considered Jake's words. The Guardian's crystals dimmed and brightened in slow patterns, as if the ancient being was thinking harder than it had in centuries. Lisa watched nervously, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything for humanity. "You propose something unprecedented," HFY finally said. "Your ancestors believed they had only two choices: remain human and stay limited, or gain power and lose their souls. But you suggest a third path." Jake nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. What if humanity could earn their inheritance gradually? What if we could learn to handle power slowly, piece by piece, while keeping what makes us human? "Explain this idea further," the Guardian requested. Jake took a deep breath. "Instead of giving humanity all the Vanguard technology at once, what if we shared it over time? Start with knowledge that helps us solve our biggest problems but requires us to work together to use it. Then, as we prove we can handle that responsibility, we receive more." Lisa stepped forward. "Like growing up," she said, understanding. "You do not give a child all the responsibilities of an adult at once. You let them learn and mature." "Exactly," Jake said, smiling at his partner. "And what if the process required cooperation between different human groups? Technology that only works when people from different nations and cultures work together. That way, we would have to maintain our connections to each other." HFY moved closer, its massive form casting strange shadows in the crystal light. "And who would oversee this gradual sharing of knowledge? Who would decide when humanity is ready for the next level?" Jake had been thinking about this question since the idea first formed. "Not one person," he said, "not even a small group. It should be humans themselves who decide, through their actions and choices. Set up challenges that require us to prove our wisdom and compassion. Make the technology itself responsive to how we treat each other." The Guardian was quiet for a long time. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that might have been excitement. "You would make humanity earn their inheritance through continued growth of character, not just knowledge." "Yes," Jake said. "And there is something else. What if humanity's role was not just to reclaim the Vanguard legacy, but to improve on it? What if we became guardians ourselves, but better guardians than before?" "Better how?" HFY asked. Jake gestured to the images still floating in the air. "The original guardians like you were created to test other species, but you have been alone for 1,000,000 years, waiting and watching. What if the new guardians were not solitary? What if humanity worked together as guardians, supporting each other and learning from each other?" Lisa understood where Jake was going with this. A network of guardians instead of individual ones. Humans helping other young species while still helping each other. "And what about the other species that failed the tests?" Jake asked. "What if instead of just protecting knowledge from them, we helped them grow? What if guardianship meant teaching and guiding, not just testing and judging?" HFY's crystals began to pulse rapidly. "You would transform the entire concept of guardianship. Instead of isolated keepers of knowledge, you propose communities of guides and teachers." "Why not?" Jake said. "The old way has not worked for 1,000,000 years. Maybe it is time to try something new." The Guardian walked around the chamber, its footsteps echoing off the ancient walls. "The risks are enormous. If humanity fails in this path, they could spread their failure across the galaxy. Other species could be damaged by inadequate guidance. But if we succeed," Lisa said, "we could help the galaxy become something better than it has ever been before." Jake nodded. The Vanguard chose isolation when they gained power. Maybe that was their real mistake. Maybe the solution is not to give up power or to use it alone, but to share it responsibly with others. HFY stopped walking and turned to face them. "You understand that accepting this path means humanity would be taking on the responsibility for guiding the entire galaxy's development, not just your own species but countless others?" "I understand," Jake said, "and I think humanity is ready for that responsibility, as long as we do not have to carry it alone." The Guardian extended one massive hand toward Jake. "Then let us begin this new experiment. I will share the first portion of the Vanguard knowledge with you, but not as the ancients intended. Instead, I will embed it in challenges that require cooperation, wisdom, and compassion to unlock. Jake reached out and took the Guardian's hand. Immediately, his mind filled with incredible knowledge. He saw designs for clean energy systems that could only function when multiple nations worked together to build them. He understood medical technologies that required doctors from different cultures to combine their knowledge. He glimpsed transportation methods that worked better when people trusted each other. But more than the technology, Jake felt something else. He sensed a network forming, a connection that linked him to the potential for something greater. It was not the isolated power of the ancient Vanguard, but something warmer and more alive. The knowledge is now part of you, Sci-Fi said, but it will only activate when humanity proves ready for each piece, and you will not be alone in carrying this burden. As other humans show the same wisdom you have shown, they too will become part of this network. Lisa looked at Jake, who appeared unchanged except for a slight glow in his eyes. How do you feel? Different, Jake said honestly. But still human. Still me. I can sense the knowledge waiting, but I cannot access it just by wanting to. It will only come when we earn it together. Sci-Fi moved toward the chamber wall, where previously hidden panels began to open. I will remain here as a teacher and guide, no longer a solitary guardian but part of your network. Other guardians across the galaxy will be awakened as humanity proves ready for their knowledge. Jake looked around the chamber that had become the birthplace of a new age. What happens now? Now, the guardian said. You return to your people and begin the greatest experiment in galactic history. You help humanity grow into guardians not through force or sudden transformation, but through choice and community. As Jake and Lisa prepared to leave the asteroid chamber, Jake turned back to Sci-Fi. Thank you for trusting us with this chance. Thank you, Jake Martinez, for showing me that there are always more choices than we first imagine. Your ancestors tried to solve the problem of power by giving it up. You have chosen to solve it by sharing it wisely. Jake and Lisa made their way back to their ship, carrying with them the knowledge that humanity was about to embark on a journey unlike any species had attempted before. They would not become gods or remain primitive. Instead, they would become something new, a species that grew in power while growing in wisdom, a people who reached for the stars while keeping their feet firmly planted in their shared humanity. As their ship moved away from the asteroid, Jake looked back at the chamber, where Sci-Fi waited. The Guardian's crystals pulsed in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, sending signals across the galaxy to other dormant Guardians. Humanity's true adventure was just beginning. The knowledge waited in Jake's mind, ready to emerge when his species proved they could handle it together. And for the first time in a million years, the galaxy had hope for a future where power and compassion could coexist, where growing stronger meant growing kinder, and where the greatest strength came not from standing alone but from lifting each other up toward the stars.